Chapter 2. The Two Minds, Emotion versus a Calculation. Welcome to your split-level brain. Picture your brain as a duplex apartment. Upstairs lives logic. Quiet, tidy, addicted to spreadsheets and podcasts about productivity. Downstairs lives emotion. Loud, spontaneous, surrounded by half-finished art projects and empty coffee mugs. They share the same plumbing. They do not share the same taste in music. Every decision you make, whether to marry, buy a car, or text your ex, requires these two roommates to cooperate. They rarely do. Emotion grabs the wheel. Logic files a complaint. The result is most of human history, the caveman and the accountant. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman called them System 1 and System 2. I call them the caveman and the accountant. The caveman acts first and asks questions never. He kept your ancestors alive by assuming every rustle was a tiger. He's impulsive, intuitive, and allergic to nuance. The accountant showed up later, probably during the agricultural revolution, clutching a quill and a ledger. He prefers bar graphs to bar fights. He calculates calories, converts risk to ratios, and reminds the caveman that technically the tiger probability is only 0.07%. Together, they built civilization and your last regrettable Amazon purchase, the firefighter's blink. Gary Klein, a psychologist who studied firefighters, once asked a captain how he knew to pull his crew from a burning house moments before the floor collapsed. The man said, "It just didn't feel right. No calculation. No deliberation." His intuition, System 1, had detected subtle cues. The crackling pitch, the heat pattern, the eerie silence of flames about to flash over. If he'd stopped to analyze, he'd have died logically. Sometimes feeling is faster than thinking. The weather app that gaslights you. Logic isn't always the hero, though. Ever argued with your weather app? It says 0% chance of rain, and yet you're drenched, clutching your phone like a soggy courtroom exhibit. Emotion shouts, "I told you." Logic scrolls calmly and says, "Statistically, this was improbable." That's the relationship. One's concerned with experience, the other with explanation. Emotion lives in the moment. Logic lives in the post-mortem. Your brain on autopilot. Most of what you call thinking isn't. It's pattern completion. You break before consciously seeing the child in the street. You reach for the fridge when you're bored, not hungry. You just know your friend's texting tone means trouble. Emotion runs those scripts faster than logic ever could. It's predictive text for life, sometimes correct, occasionally catastrophic. When it fails, logic emerges like a customer service rep saying, "Let's review what went wrong today." The philosopher's sandwich dilemma. At noon, logic says, "We'll have the turkey club, good protein to fat ratio." Emotion counters, "Grilled cheese equals childhood happiness." 10 minutes later, you're eating fries you didn't plan to order and promising to be healthy tomorrow. That, in miniature, is the human condition, the future-oriented brain negotiating with the dopamine-addicted toddler in charge of now, the surgeon's hunch. In 2007, a cardiac surgeon in Toronto stopped mid-operation. Everything looked fine, vitals stable, monitors steady, but something felt wrong. He ordered another scan. Hidden clot. Disaster averted. The man couldn't articulate his logic because it wasn't logic. It was intuition built from 10,000 operations of subconscious pattern recognition. Emotion isn't the enemy of reason, it's the laboratory that trains it. Why we can't outthink our feelings. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio studied patients with damage to the emotional centers of the brain. They still had IQs higher than yours, and mine combined. But they couldn't decide. Lunch, clothes, job offers, hours of sterile reasoning, zero conclusion. Emotion provides valuate. Without it, everything's a coin toss. Logic may rank the options, but emotion picks the winner. The illusion of the pilot. You think you steer your choices like a captain at the helm. Actually, you're the narrator who explains where the ship already went. Split brain studies prove it. One hemisphere acts. The other invents a rational story afterward. Your conscious mind is basically your PR department, issuing press releases for decisions you never approved. Emotion fires the shot. Logic writes the memo. The speed trap of certainty. Fast feels true. That's why first impressions stick, headlines spread, and scams work. System 1 evolved to assume the worst quickly. System 2 evolved to justify it later. You read? Scientists discover chocolate cures aging. Emotion cheers. Logic sighs and looks it up, but emotion already bought the chocolate. The Bayesian love story. Think of emotion as your internal statistician. Every experience updates your odds for pleasure or pain. First heartbreak, prior probability equals 0 trust. Find someone kind, posterior probability improves, get ghosted again. Bayesian reset to love is a hoax. Emotion sets priors, logic updates the math. Together, they create what economists call decision weighting and poets call baggage. How emotion tricks logic. Emotion has the ultimate cheat code, urgency. It floods your bloodstream with cortisol and says, decide now. Logic, still booting up Excel, panics. That's how marketers sell cars, politicians sell fear, and dating apps sell hope. The oldest hack in neuroscience. Make people feel first and justify later. It works every election cycle and every Black Friday. How logic tricks. Emotion. Logic gets revenge by weaponizing jargon. Ever tried explaining a feeling to someone armed with statistics? I'm sad. Well, studies show exercise releases endorphins. Thank you, Dr. Spreadsheet. But grief doesn't care about bar charts. When logic overanalyzes feelings, it doesn't solve them. It sterilizes them. You don't analyze your way out of heartbreak. You metabolize it. The corporate brain. Your brain's division of labor mirrors every dysfunctional company. Department, emotion ops. Motto, act now. Typical outcome, innovation and chaos. Department, logic support. Motto, let's review. Typical outcome, order and paralysis. When they collaborate, you get vision with execution. When they feud, you get endless meetings in your skull. Why intuition feels right, even when it's wrong. Emotion doesn't do probability, it does plausibility. It remembers vivid stories, not long odds. That's why you fear plane crashes more than heart disease and spiders more than saturated fat. Emotion counts headlines, logic counts bodies. Guess which one gets invited to dinner conversations? Why logic feels cold, even when it's correct. Logic's strength is abstraction. Its weakness is empathy. Tell logic a child is drowning and it calculates water depth. Tell emotion and it jumps in. Both are necessary. One saves the kid, the other remembers to call 911. Pure emotion burns out, pure logic freezes over. The moral brain test. Neuroscientists once gave volunteers the classic trolley dilemma. Pull a lever to save 5 people, but kill 1. Most participants, guided by logic, pulled it. Then they changed the scenario. Push 1 person off a bridge to stop the trolley. Same math, different emotion. Suddenly, morality felt heavier than algebra. Our ethics are emotional equations with fuzzy constants, training the inner partnership. Elite performers fuse the two minds. Pilots practice logic until calm becomes instinct. Musicians rehearse emotion until spontaneity becomes precision. Chess grandmasters don't calculate every line. They feel which ones matter. The secret isn't thinking harder, it's training intuition until logic can trust it. When logic and emotion divorce. Ever notice that people who brag about being purely rational are usually one bad day from throwing a laptop out the window? Suppress emotion long enough, and it rebels. Likewise, all emotion lifestyles, impulse shopping, toxic relationships, Twitter, burn out fast. Each system alone is a tyrant. Together, they form a democracy, messy, loud, occasionally on fire. But it works. The reconciliation. Imagine a boardroom in your brain. Emotion bursts in late, shouting, "We're doomed." Logic adjusts its glasses. Let's define doomed. After an hour of bickering, they agree to send an email and order takeout. That's progress. Wisdom isn't silencing one voice. It's letting both talk until they form a sentence that sounds human, the calculus of compassion. A strange thing happens when the two minds cooperate. Math grows a heart. Doctors who balance empathy with data make better diagnoses. Judges who temper law with mercy make fairer rulings. Scientists who feel wonder make discoveries that stick. Emotion gives purpose. Logic gives direction. Purpose without direction is chaos. Direction without purpose is cruelty. The ego illusion. We often say, "I made a logical decision," as if there's a single I. In truth, you're a committee of neural subroutines arguing in a meat helmet. Your self is just whichever voice won the last vote. Understanding that makes forgiveness possible, both for yourself and others. You're not irrational. You're multitasking. How to negotiate a truce. Pause before reacting. That's how you invite logic to the meeting. Name the feeling. That's how you keep emotion from flipping the table. Ask, "What am I assuming?" The universal translator. If both minds agree, proceed. If they don't, sleep on it. Tomorrow's chemicals will vote differently. The science of gut checks. MRI studies show intuition isn't magic. It's memory compressed into instinct. Every gut feeling is a database query returning a hunch. It feels instant because it skipped the part where you had to explain yourself. Emotion stores wisdom that logic later footnotes. Together they make a decent author. One drafts, the other edits. When to trust your gut and when not to. Trust intuition when. You have experience in the domain, feedback is immediate, and stakes are familiar. Don't trust it when. You're in new territory, feedback is delayed, or your ego's at stake. Basically, intuition works great for firefighters, not for crypto investors. The coffee shop reunion. Think of this book as a coffee mediator for your two minds. Emotions jittery, waving hands mid-story. Logic's sipping black coffee, muttering, "Correlation does not equal causation." Somewhere between caffeine and sarcasm, they remember they actually like each other. That reconciliation is the birthplace of wisdom and decent espresso. Closing scene. The bridge. On a quiet night, a bridge stands between two halves of your mind. Emotion lights lanterns. Logic checks the structural load. They meet in the middle, not perfectly aligned, but strong enough to carry you. You don't have to choose between them. You just have to keep them talking. Because every time logic saves you from a bad decision, emotion taught it why it mattered. And every time emotion rescues you from paralysis, logic later writes the apology email. Teaser for Chapter 3. In the next chapter, We'll meet the cult that worships logic as infallible, the mythmakers of the Enlightenment, and the modern descendants who think data replaced morality. Spoiler, it didn't. Logic built the guillotine. Emotion pulled the rope. It's time to ask why humanity keeps calling itself rational while setting its own pants on fire.